Hello and welcome back to Matt's Automotive Channel. Today we're back at it with the GT500, and today we're going to be installing a wideband O2 sensor, air-fuel ratio gauge on the car. But let me explain why we're doing this. Yeah, we recently installed 410 gears on the car, which definitely woke it up a lot. And now we're going to add a new blower pulley. This is a 2.5 inch pulley with a 90 mm idler to take up the slack for the smaller diameter pulley. The original pulley, I believe, is 3 inches, which means that we're going to be playing around with the tune a bit. And anytime you play around with the tune, you want to make sure that the engine is running safely. So in order to do that, we're going to install this Autometer air fuel gauge. It uses a wideband O2 sensor. Now for the tune on the car, I'm going to use the Bama tune from American Muscle. However, when you have a car tuned, you want to make sure that the tune is running safely, and so this is how we're going to do it. Unfortunately, the 2010 GT500 did not come with a wideband sensor, so that's why we're installing this one. So when we do put the tune on the car, we can make sure that it's running safely. Also, if you take it to a dyno and have it tuned, it's very helpful to have a wideband sensor on it like this to aid in the tuning. All right, on this particular car, we're going to weld a new O2 bung for the wideband sensor into the mid pipe of the exhaust. However, on this car, the driver's side upstream O2 sensor is actually mounted right into the header itself, whereas on the passenger side, it's into the mid pipe. So we're going to have to unplug the upstream O2 sensor here on the passenger side. And from what I hear, the easiest way to get to it is to remove this battery and then reach down under it and unhook it from the top. All right, and then since we have to pull the battery to get to that passenger side upstream O2 sensor, I bought this device here, which will keep memory alive while the battery's pulled, so I won't have to reprogram the radio, Bluetooth, or anything like that. This particular unit here can power the car in two different ways. You can power it through the OBD2 or through a 12-volt port. So the way that this works is you hook an external battery to power this, and then either plug it into OBD2 or in through the 12 volt. Now, if you use this, some cars, they turn off the power to this port when the ignition's off. So if that's the case, you will want to turn the ignition on to the first position before disconnecting the main battery. And before you ever power a car using one of these devices, make sure you turn off any kind of high drain devices on the car before disconnecting the main battery, like the headlights, climate control, or anything if you're turning the ignition to the on position to keep this thing alive. So just be wary of that. You want to minimize the amount of current draw while using this device. All right, this car actually keeps this port powered all the time, whether the ignition is in the #1 position or off. So we don't need to worry about putting anything into the ignition, but we do want to make sure that the lights are off completely. And I guess that's it. Since we don't have to turn this on, we don't have to worry about climate control or radio or anything like that. But if you did have to turn this on to keep this thing alive here, definitely make sure you turn off your radio and climate control and all that stuff. All right, so I just plugged in. I don't have this side hook to the battery yet. Make sure that when you plug it in that those conductors are separate, because otherwise you're going to blow a fuse. But you can see indicated by the green light here that this thing is powered without the ignition on. I'm ready to hook up this external battery, and you can see the one light is lit there, which indicates that there's power to that port. And then as I plug in the other side, you'll see that another light comes on. So that means that you're ready and you can go ahead and pull the power from the main battery. Now, when you disconnect these, you want to make sure that these don't come in contact with one another or the positive to the body, because again, you're going to short the system out and probably blow a fuse. So just be careful of that. All right, just to show you here, I have these terminals here disconnected, and we still should have power. And you can see 10.73 volts still coming through here. So that's why I'm saying it's very careful. You need to be careful about these two shorting out or to the body or anything like that. So I'm going to get some bags and then put them over those, and I won't have to worry about it. All right, so let's go ahead and put some insulated material over these connectors. All right, that way we won't have to be quite so careful. All right, there's just 3 8mm bolts down here that need to be pulled. Okay. And then this tray should lift out. There we go. All right, now just to show you, the O2 sensor that we're speaking of is right there, and then you can see the plug right there. It's still very difficult to get to. Okay, we got it. It's still a little difficult. I found the best way to do it is to actually reach your hand around these tubes here and put your thumb on the little tab and then just pull out. All right, for the time being, I went ahead and just reinstalled this battery loosely. That way I don't drain down the Keep Alive battery here. Now we're gonna go ahead and take a look at this exhaust. As you can see here, this is on the driver's side. The O2 sensor up there is actually plugged in to the header, so we don't have to bother unplugging that one when we drop this. However, on the passenger side, that's the one that we just unplugged from the top. So all we really need to do now is just unplug these 2 downstream sensors, O2 sensors, and then just go ahead and remove this exhaust. But before we do that, we want to put a mark where we're going to install the O2 bung. And as you can see, it's kind of tight up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the O2 sensor and find out what would be the best angle to mount it at, and then put a mark up here. That way when we pull it down, we'll know where to drill the hole. All right, let's unbox the wideband here and see exactly what we have. All right, there's the O2 bung that we're going to need to weld into the exhaust. And of course the gauge itself. And here's the wideband O2 sensor. So we'll place this up underneath the car and kind of see where it fits best, and then mark the exhaust, and then we'll pull the exhaust and drill a hole. All right, after holding the O2 sensor up here for a little bit and playing around with it, it looks like the best place to install this thing is going to be, so the O2 sensor is coming up right next to this top nut here. And so this flange moves around, and I wasn't able to put a mark right where it should be, but if I know it has to be lined up right with that bolt there, I put a mark on the flange here and the pipe. So once I have the pipe off, I can line this up and then determine exactly where the hole needs to go. All right, in preparation of dropping this mid pipe, I went ahead and tied these 2 back pipes to the drive shaft just to support them, because there's no hangers that support these until you get all the way back up here over the axle. So anyway, that'll keep that in place when we take these off. And went ahead and pulled the rear O2 sensors. And I did hit these nuts up here with some WD-40 to loosen them. So hopefully this will come off pretty easy now. All right, we were able to pull that mid pipe out with relatively no issues. And you can see here what I was talking about. Here's the driver's side O2 sensor. It's just kind of built right into the header itself, so we didn't have to pull that one. And then you can see that there's just the one on the right side on the upstream O2 sensor, and then of course the 2 downstream ones. So we're going to put our hole for the O2 sensor right in here on the top. You never want to put them on the bottom, because if you put them on the bottom, when moisture accumulates in the exhaust system, once the engine's off, the moisture will get there and puddle up on the sensor, and it can wreck it. So, and then let's see. You can see here where I put the marks. So basically what I'm going to do is line these up like so. And then we know that we want the O2 bung to be pretty much in line with the bolt here. So I'll probably drill a hole right in this vicinity here. And that'll leave the O2 sensor in the stream, in the main stream here. I did think about mounting it here, because if you're looking here, it's kind of hard to see with this camera here, but it's hollow quite a ways back. But if we mounted it here, the O2 sensor would be kind of out of the exhaust stream, which we don't want. So we're going to mount it right here, so it's right in the stream, just like the one on this side. You can see it's right there in the middle of the stream. So that's what we want for the other one as well. All right, after lining everything up, put a mark here where we need to drill the hole. So I'll go ahead and get it started here. All right, and then when we drill, we want to drill with the pipe in this configuration, so any of the metal fragments will fall out and not fall into the cat itself. Alright, so we got the hole drilled and cleaned up the area around it for the weld, and cleaned up the O2 bung, got all the oil off that. So now we just need to weld this into place. Alright, now we got the new O2 sensor screwed in there, so we can go ahead and reinstall the mid pipe now. Alright, on the driver's side of the car, I took this fender well out, and of course the wheel was off, and decided to run the wire through this little hole right here. And I'll show you where I came up from underneath here. Let's see. Okay, there's the new sensor right there, and it just goes up right through there over the steering shaft, and then out the side over here. And there's a connector right in there, so I connected that underneath the car. Let's see if I can get a better shot of that. Right there. And it's just gonna rest right here onto this metal, and then I'm just gonna route this down and zip tie it here. And then I'll go through the firewall right through this boot here. I think I'm gonna just cut this little nipple off here, and then route the wiring through there and then up into the car. All right, I went ahead and zip tied this coming down, so I don't want this connector to go back, fall back in, because it's either going to hit the steering shaft, or it's going to hit the exhaust and then melt. So I kept this really taut here, and then just kind of made an S here, and I pulled this plug out here, and if you look in there, you can actually see the interior of the car. So this is definitely where we're going to go through. So I'm just going to cut this little nipple here, and then fish all this wire through the firewall right there. All right, we got all the wire fed in. I'm leaving a little bit of extra out here just in case we need to pull the exhaust. It gives us some room to undo the connector and have a little bit of slack there. Also coming out of the hole here, just go down a bit so you have a little bit of a drip loop. If water does end up on this, it will go down instead of into the hole here. All right, had a little bit of a putty, so I went ahead and put that in here too, just to seal it up a little bit better. So definitely no water will get in there now. All right, I went ahead and pulled some of the underpinnings of the dash off, along with the light switch and dimmer controls. And I was able to route the wire right up through the side and then come up right here. So this connector here is what's going to plug into the gauge. And then we have all the other wires here that we're going to use for power, ground, and dimming and that sort of thing. So that's the next step. I'm hoping that we can just hook everything in to these connectors here. Hopefully there's power on one of these with the ignition, and one for the dimmer and that sort of thing. So anyway, we'll hook the battery back up and then pin these out, and hopefully we can just make use of these plugs. If not, we're gonna have to route some of the wires somewhere else. All right, I went ahead and back probed some of these connectors here, and then I found here that purple, right where the that yellow back probe is plugged in, the purple white that's the one that goes from 0 to 12 volts along with the dimmer switch. So that's the one I'm going to hook the white wire to, this guy here. And for the switched power that comes on with the ignition, I went over here and found the fuse box and the kick panel here on the passenger side. And I went to that relay, or that fuse right under the relay there. I believe that's a 10 amp fuse, and I just got add a circuit and went in there. And that comes on only when the ignition is on, or when the fuel pump's on. That's the only time that we really want the air fuel gauge on anyway. So I'm gonna go from here and then run wires through the back side and then over there, and then eventually put all the wires together and run them up there to the A-pillar. As for the ground, you have a lot of options here, but there's many places underneath here where there's some grounding connections. Let's see if I can find one that I'm going to use. I saw it a little early. Okay, as for the ground, you have a lot of different options here. The one I'm going to use is right here, just underneath the steering column. You can see that there's something else already grounded here, so I'm just going to add that. So those will be the 3 wires that I use to hook up to this. There are some other options here for data logging, that sort of thing, but I'm not going to hook those up. All right, now we need to mount the gauge pod onto the pillar, and I drilled a hole here so we can feed the wire through, and line this up here, and then we're going to drill 3 3/16 inch holes in each of these corners here, and that'll attach the pod to this A-pillar cover. We got it all wired up now. Let's see if we get a reading here. There we go. That's the correct reading. But yeah, looks like it's working fine. Good deal. And let's see, little dim. Yep. Got your dims. It's working great. And then don't forget to put your battery back in and tie it all down. And looks like all we need to do now is just tidy up things, and we should be able to take it out for a test drive and see what our baseline is, and then we'll do the pulley swap and put a new tune on it, and then check it, make sure it's still running safe. Well, it's been a long day. I think we'll call it quits here and end this video. And tomorrow we'll go ahead and take the car out for a drive and observe the air-fuel ratio under boost, and also when idling around. Under boost, I believe it should be around 11.5 to 1 air-fuel ratio. The additional fuel is what helps keep the engine running cool. So anyway, we'll do some tests there. Then we'll go ahead and put the 2.5 inch pulley on it. The stock pulley's 3 inch. That's going to give us another 4 pounds of boost, which is equivalent to another 60 horsepower. So this came stock with 540, so that should push us up in the neighborhood of 600. And then we also got some new tires coming, so I'll make another video on putting the tires on this thing. The tires that are on this now are about 4 or 5 years old, so the rubber is very hard, and I tell you, it wants to go sideways very easily, just barely flipping the throttle will go sideways on you. So it's kind of dangerous, especially with the extra power and then doing the 410 gears. It just wants to take off and go. So anyway, I'll just leave it there, and we'll continue tomorrow with the pulley swap. So till then, see you next time. Bye.